So I am going to be talking about managing stress in present times. And I think it's best we just do a little bit of housekeeping. I will take questions at the end. So if you have any questions, you can always put the questions in the chat box. If you are struggling and you need resources where you're located, you can always message me and I can always connect you with resources. And I'm hoping that by the end of this session, we have better skills at managing stress in present times. Without further ado, let's go for it. Okay. I think to be able to talk about managing stress in present times, the first thing we need to do is talk about what is stress. And stress in present day times has become synonymous with anxiety. But it's best to say that stress is a different entity from anxiety. You can develop anxiety when you have consistent stress. So what is stress? Stress is a feeling of emotional tension and physical tension that can be triggered by a thought, event. It can be beneficial or detrimental. All it depends on our interpretation. Stress can propel you to be proficient at, bringing up a presentation. Stress was proficient for me yesterday, and last minute prep and procrastination, I got my slides going. But it can also be detrimental. It all has to do with our interpretation, and I will be discussing that. So let's talk about the types of stress. There are three distinct types of stress which we deal with on a daily basis. There could be an acute stress. In psychiatry, we said it can produce what's called an acute stress reaction. And this can be as a cause of a natural disaster, accident, sudden death of a loved one. There's also the episodic acute stress. So when you have a demanding job, timelines, deadlines, interpersonal difficulties, or when we take on too much responsibility. And then the most detrimental of all is the chronic stress, which is a consistent sense of feeling pressured and overwhelmed for a long period of time. It could have to do, give an example, you're commuting long distances for work, ongoing relational discord, or chronic illness. But to be able to understand stress, we need to talk a bit more that there must be a stress response for a situation to feel stressed. Bearing in mind that our perception, like I've said in the last slide, has a lot to do with how we view stress. Our perception, our interpretation has a lot with how we view stress. So what is a stress response? A stress response is basically like what we call a fire alarm. It occurs in our bodies. The alarm gets activated whenever you feel angry, threatened, challenged, and it leads to a complex set of physical changes that take place in our body. I'll give certain examples, and the next slide will be more explanatory. So what is typically referred to as the fight or flight is what typically causes this cascade of events in our physical body for us to feel stressed. There could be there usually is an increase in blood sugar, which leads to more energy, because if you're going to fight or you're going to flight or you're going to freeze, you need that energy. Then your breathing speeds up. It leads to more oxygen to burn sugar for energy. The heart rate increases to pump the oxygen and the sugar faster through the body. Blood is diverted to the large muscles we need to flee and away from the skin and the digestive system. The process of blood being diverted away from the digestive system leads to you perspiring more to cool down. So this is what we call a stress response. For the benefit of this sharing, whenever I say a stress response, this is what I mean. It's that feeling you get when you almost feel like you're in a panic. So what are the symptoms of stress? When we recognize the symptoms of stress, I'm going to talk a bit more about other symptoms, but this just basically tells you what are the symptoms of stress that those are the things that you can key in. And you can key into these things when you're in a state of mindfulness. Mindfulness is totally different from meditation. Mindfulness is being present in the moment, being aware of our surroundings. Take, for example, you notice that your teeth grinding, very common for me when I was in medical school. A sense of apathy, trouble concentrating, a feeling of anger for no reason, anxiety. Like I said, stress is different from anxiety. Anxiety is a feeling of fear, doom, dread, with associated feelings of hopelessness, excessive worry. There are three types of anxiety. For the benefit of this discussion, I'll say your anxiety can be free floating. It's there all the time. Your anxiety can be situational. Certain situations provoke you to feel anxious, or it can be anticipatory. I've got a presentation. I've got to make a phone call. What are the signs? Headaches, muscle tension, stomach problems. In the medical society, when a patient is described as having IBS, I get a referral from that doctor, because usually IBS is a sign that we haven't been able to figure out what is causing this irritable bowel syndrome. Can you help us? It's typically anxiety. Stomach problems, skin irritations, and decreased sex drive. Now, the other slide may not be a bit clear, but it just basically talks about what kind of things can happen to the body when we've had stress. It talks about things like you can have mood symptoms, depression, anxiety, mental health difficulties, hypertension, hypercholesterol, diabetes. You can have cardiovascular accident, heart attacks. You can have abdominal issues. You can have breathing problems. You can have osteoarthritis. The list is unending. What has been determined is that stress can predict the outcome of chronic illness. The more stressed we are in our everyday life can predict how we manage chronic illness. Okay, we've talked about the stress response, and we've differentiated that it's different from an anxiety disorder. We all have a stress response at every time, multiple times in the day in our life. So why do we have a stress response? Like I said initially, that a stress response is a fight or flight reflex. It is primitive. Everyone is born with this reflex. It was a reflex that our ancestors needed to, ward off threats, the saber-toothed tiger, you understand? And it was to help them with well-being and help them, to be ward off physical dangers like predators. But the problem is that we're no more living in the jungle. We're no more our ancestors. In this present time, it has not been beneficial, because most of our challenges in this present times cannot be resolved with this fight or flight. Despite this, it switches on in our everyday situation. Being at a team meeting, feeling attacked, the last thing you want to do is flee or you want to fight. But that response comes in. And the art of dealing with the stress response is learning to master it. Okay. Why is stress a problem? We've talked a bit 2 slides before about the effects of stress, but why is it a problem in our everyday life? So it is a problem because when you go into your stress response, the primitive part of the brain, the less developed part of the brain is what gets triggered. The hypothalamus, those are primitive parts of the brain. But what we need in situations that are stressful is a triggering of the more mature part of the brain, which is the frontal lobe, where you get the executive functioning. And I'm going to explain how we can switch from this stress response to moving into what we call a response pathway, which is a more mature pathway to deal with stress. So like I've written on the slide, it says most modern day stressors requires you being calm and utilizing problem-solving skills. But our stress response makes it hard to slow down and think, as it brings up a lot of powerful emotions with it, like fear and anger, which go in the way of you having a calm response. Now, I need to make a distinction. Emotions are good, whether they're bad or whether they're positive. Emotions are there to give you a sign. So all the emotions you feel when you get stressed, it's a sign for you to act. It's not a sign for you to focus on them. And so I tell my patients, feel the emotions, feel the fear, but do it anyway. So it says our bodies are not equipped to have this emergency system switched on all the time. Long-term stress can make us more vulnerable to diseases, like I've talked before, hypertension, abdominal ulcers, increased cholesterol, heart attack, inflammatory disease, and mental health disorders. Okay, what are the causes of stress? Anything that challenges your ability to cope is a stressor, and it can activate your stress response. So people typically have this view that bad things are what causes us to be stressed. But in reality, positive things also can make us stress. whether it's a marriage, having kids, moving to a new home or country, losing a job, a new job, dealing with illness, death, going on a trip. All of this can be stress, can be a stress factor depending on where we are in our life. Any situations that tend to overload us with emotions. And the emotions, when we talk about emotions, the emotions are joy, anger, sadness, fear, shame, guilt. Minor things that other people you might consider minor, depending on the day, might be a cause of stress. Commuting, disagreement, work relationship issues. Also, ongoing minor stressors can be detrimental in the long run if it's ongoing. Financial stressors, daily worries about where's the next meal going to come from? Am I going to have a roof over my head? These are causes of stress. So when I started this talk, I said two things are vital: perception and interpretation. We're going to see why perception is vital first. So how one views a situation that is a stressor, and thoughts of not being able to handle the situation can activate the stress response. Under the hazardous cloud that I put in there, this is the most important thing you need to take away, is that for every situation you face, for you to have a stress response, you need to interpret that situation. Your interpretation of that situation will determine whether you have a stress response or you don't. I'm going to give you an example. Most psychiatric disorders are not hereditary. And the reason why is we say they have a polygenic inheritance, because there has to be the perfect storm coming together to be able to elicit you feeling depressed. There might be a family history, but it does not invariably mean that you're going to be depressed, or family history of anxiety. It's the same thing with the situation. There's certain factors that will influence your interpretation of a situation. It can be your present mental state then. For daily things, I tell my patients, when that situation happens, when you notice yourself interpreting it wrongly and getting all flustered, filled with emotions, that's the stress response. You need to figure out, do you feel hungry? Are you tired? Are you sick? Are you thirsty? Other things that can influence how we interpret a situation will be our background, how we were brought up, what that triggers in us. So you must be able to take your time to figure out, why am I getting a stress response from this situation? It's not just enough to allow a stress response to take over your day. You being able to take that bit of time to be able to say, why do I feel this way? Can go a long way to you having an overall overwhelming bad day, to a time where you can say, oh, I see this. I'm feeling stressed by this because it reminds me of the last project I did that I didn't do well. And then you can normalize the situation. So that's what I said, the next cloud says what you think is going on versus what is really going on. And when I send an example for a party, let's say I get an invitation for a party. Tenny gets an invitation for a party. Tenny sees that party as a time to mingle, meet up with friends, and just feel good. Tenny is coming from the fact that she has interpreted that situation, which is an invitation to a party, as a good thing. So her stress response is an emotion of joy. I, on the other hand, get that invitation to that party. And the first thing I say is, oh my goodness, there's going to be a crowd there. I'm going to have to meet new people. I'm going to start babbling. I'm not going to be able to get my point across. I start to get flustered. So it's a party. To Tenny, it's a great thing. To me, it's something that I'm dreading. How am I going to tell that person that gave me that invite that I don't want to attend the party? So that is what it means, that situation, what do you think versus what is really going on? So when I get those emotions, instead of saying, I'm not going to attend that party, but I don't want to offend the person, you understand? And then I get all flustered. The first thing I'm going to say to myself is, why am I feeling this way? What is really going on? What is it about this party that's making me anxious? And that comes to our next point by the dice. Check the facts. Normalize it. Check the facts. What is going on? Why am I feeling that way? What is triggering me? Where is this coming from? So this slide is a very important slide. It's called the triangle of experience. If you understand why we have the slide, you will be able to understand why certain things happen. For you to understand the triangle of experience, the first thing you have to remember is that for every thought you have, we have millions of thoughts going through our head on a daily basis. There has to be a trigger. For you to think that thought, there has to be a trigger. Your trigger could be an image, Your trigger could be something someone said. It could be a memory. And that trigger will elicit a thought. And that thought will elicit feelings and sensations or emotions. It will elicit a feelings of happiness. It will elicit a feelings of sadness. But it's going to typically influence our behavior. Like I told you about the party. You understand? Am I going to go to that party? Am I going to pretend I didn't get that invite? But our thoughts affect our feelings and our behavior. If you remember when I talked about the fact that there are two parts of the brain that elicits that we have when we have stress response. There is the primitive part that gives you the fight or flight, and then there is the mature part. The primitive part is what it's ingrained in us. That's how we're wired. That is the react pathway. And basically we get that thought. I start to get that stress response. Oh my goodness, why am I invited to this party? I don't want to go. I don't think I can deal with it. What happens is that I go on autopilot. My mind starts to go a mile a minute. Unhelpful habit. I'm just not going to reply her email. I'm going to pretend as I didn't see it. Oh, but my therapist told me that I need to socialize more. No, I'm not going to socialize. So what am I going to do? I go into a react mode. It's either I avoid, I don't attend the party, I ruminate, or I act impulsively. You understand? I shut my phone down. I don't answer anybody. Or I go and have a drink and just drink myself off and go to bed. Or I blame people, you understand? And I externalize it. This leads you into places where it's unhelpful. You're not working in line with your values. So that's why we need to get into the pathway, which is the response pathway. And the best way to get to a response pathway from a react pathway is finding the pause. We're going to talk about finding the pause, because when you find the pause, you can check the facts. You can check your interpretation. You can come up with strategies. And what happens is that you're going to respond in a way that you're going to choose based on your values. Finding the pause. How do we find the pause? Remember, for us to be able to go into our response pathway, which is the mature pathway, which uses our frontal lobe, we use our executive function, we need to find the pause. So, like I've written here, it just says our mutual, not well-defined pathways, our mature, well-defined pathways are the response pathways to activate. If we need to find the pause, once we've paused, we can use skills like your breathing exercise, distraction, exercise, grounding. This can help us to see that triangle of experience I showed you and work towards helping us notice the consequences of our action. Also, we'll be able to check the facts and focus on what we can control and what we cannot control. Because focusing on what we can control and what we cannot control is a way of being able to manage stress. So I'm going to give you this. In the beginning of this next slide, at the beginning of the pandemic, this slide was everywhere. It was produced by the CDC to help people manage what was going on because we were all in an unknown. But basically, I love the way because what it does is helps you to find the pause. It was trying to help people decrease anxiety and the hysteria. You understand, giving us back a sense of control in an effort to decrease the stress response. What I'm gonna say is that part of the issues with stress and anxiety is that we feel out of control. But newsflash, we're never in control. But being able to give you some control gives you a sense of being in control, because the feeling of not being in control is what spirals stress into anxiety. So this came out and it says, what are the kind of things that I can control? My positive attitude, turning off the news, how I follow CDC recommendation, my also social distancing, limiting my social media. These are things that are within our control. What I cannot control, if others follow the rule of social distances, the actions of others, predicting what will happen. And the reality is that to be able to ground my patients, I tell them to focus on that inner circle. Let go of what you can't control. In the time being, while you're waiting to be able to know if you can have control of what you don't have control, it's time to focus on what you have control on. So we've talked about stress. We've talked about the stress response. We've talked about finding the pause. We've talked about what we can control and what we cannot control. Now, how do we manage stress? Managing stress talks about that diagram I told you, where it was the situation, the interpretation, and the stress response. To manage stress, we have to deal with the situation, we have to check the interpretations, and we have to challenge the stress response. So the situation, I gave you an example, the party. Define the problem. What is the problem? The problem is, I'm afraid I'm going to mess up if I go to that party. Okay, so breaking it down. The problem could be, take for example, the clinic I run at the Vancouver Island University. The main problem with students is not being able to time manage. The problem is that I'm not going to be able to meet the deadline for my assignment. We sit down with them and we help them break it down. Breaking it down is saying, what is the making SMART goals? So everyone's heard about SMART goals, but the most important thing to remember is that you do not make a SMART goal on an ultimate goal. You make a SMART goal on an immediate goal. So what's an ultimate goal? The ultimate goal for every one of my students at VIU is to graduate from university. But their immediate goals is to be able to submit their assignments on time and to be able to prepare for their exams. So we break it down. How are you going to be able to prepare for your assignments on time? You have a 4-week period to be able to prepare for that assignment. So why don't you break it down? This week, I'm going to work on this. Then you come back and check in next week. So break down that goal, break down the problem. How can I manage this problem? Oh, I have to go to work. My children have aftercare. I have to be able to manage this. How am I going to do that? It could be a problem with work, being at a team meeting, finding that you don't have a voice, struggling with deadlines. Use strategies. You understand? Assertiveness. Overcoming procrastination. Try and break it down. Use your goals to break it down. Time management, delegation, letting go of tasks and responsibilities that are not important. And we'll talk about why when we talk about lifestyle management. So I talked a bit about the interpretations. So for the interpretation, this is the situation. I'm sitting at a team meeting. This is a situation that was applicable to me. I talk about this a lot because it was a defining moment for me learning how to check the interpretation. I was heading a multidisciplinary team meeting and the meeting was going well. We were discussing a patient and I just felt the occupational therapist was antagonistic and I started to get irked. And I just noticed that I was just feeling antsy. I was feeling uptight. I was feeling snappy. And as the meeting went up, I was able to ground myself to a place of mindfulness where I was like, okay, what is going on? Why am I feeling this way? It kept going. I kept feeling, I just noticed that whenever she talked, I would just literally, just blurt at her and be quite brash, for lack of a better word. I left the meeting and I was driving to my outpatient clinic and I was just still feeling antsy, feeling uptight. I was like, and I said to myself, what is going on? Why am I feeling this way? I didn't feel this way getting up in the morning. And I was able to link it back to that meeting. And bless her heart, I love her. We're friends. I was like, so what was it about that meeting that got me uptight? And then I remembered, the occupational therapist. I was like, but she didn't do anything. What was it that made me get overwhelmed? It was I felt challenged. I felt every decision I made, she had a reason why it would not work. I met a lot of resistance from her. And I said to myself, am I upset that she challenged me or the resistance? By the time I was able to check the fact, because I felt that her challenging me and putting up resistance made it seem as if I was not in control of the team. Then I had to check the facts. Her challenging me, does that mean that I'm not in control of the team? No, it does not. That's why it's called a multidisciplinary team. Everyone has a right to be able to voice an opinion. So you have to check the facts. You have to challenge the way you think, you understand? And then I said to myself, her challenging me, putting a bit of resistance, what could I have done? Maybe I could have explained to her that, there are other ways that we can surmount the resistance that she's putting up. I could have reflected to her what I felt was coming from her, you understand? And then after a while, you have to get to a point to think, is this a do or die affair? Will I remember this in 6 months? Am I catastrophizing? I was catastrophizing. Was I jumping to conclusion? Definitely. And all these are called thinking traps because they can affect the way you view yourself, your world, and other people. So the next way we can challenge our interpretation is to challenge our core beliefs and faulty assumptions. I'm just going to briefly explain what that is. One has to do with nature and the other has to do with nurture. Core beliefs come from nurture, how you were raised, what you were told about yourself. They're very abrupt statements that our mind keeps generating. So when you hear yourself saying something and believing I'm stupid, I'm not worthy, you understand, I'm dumb. Those are core beliefs. They come from how we were parented, how our teachers parented us, and they can affect our interpretation of situations. Faulty assumptions come from our experience. Okay, I'm not willing to go into another relationship because all my previous relationships, it always ended with me being told I was not good enough. So the next relationship, I'm going into it thinking I'm not good enough. Those kind of things, we need to check it. We don't just allow those kind of stuff move us on. What is that consistent playback you get in your head? If it's negative, where is it coming from? Stress responses. So we have interpreted that situation wrongly. We're now in a process where we're having a stress response. Remember the stress response. You're feeling uptight, you're feeling antsy, you're feeling, you understand, muscle tension, you feel angry, you're shivering, you're having palpitations. How can we manage the stress response in the moment? The first thing you need to do is that the breathing exercises. I am going to emphasize this today. A lot of people come. It doesn't work. It doesn't work because you don't understand how it works and you haven't done it well. If you understand the essence of breathing, there is nobody that tried a breathing exercise, whether in an anxiety attack, a panic attack, or in a stressful moment, who did not find some relief. In a nutshell, for you to be able to understand breathing, you need to understand that when we get hyper aroused with a stress response, our autonomic system is in overdrive. There is only one system that can counteract the autonomic system, and that system is what we call the parasympathetic system. The beautiful parasympathetic system is only activated by one nerve, and that nerve is called the vagal nerve. And guess where that nerve ends? It ends under your diaphragm. So when we tell you to breathe, it's about breathing in, holding it, expanding your chest so your diaphragm goes from being curved to being flat and connects with your vagal nerve. When it does that, it releases relaxation. The parasympathetic system causes relaxation. So when you do your breathing exercise well, you will feel relaxed in the moment. So there's the one breath, there is the 4-minute breathing skill, there's the progressive muscle relaxation with breathing. There are a lot of breathing exercises that it will always be great. So, you know, typically for us, what I remember is growing up where you hear your mom go, that is supposed to mimic a warm breath, but in all sincerity, it was not done well. So it actually just signifies to everybody around is watch out, she's stressed, she's distressed. I do it as a mom. And then I tell myself that really is not a warm breath. A warm breath is taking the breath in, counting to 3 and releasing it slowly through your nose. So there's structured relaxation exercises. There's the grounding, 5 things I can see, 4 things I can smell. It's all about grounding yourself and align yourself in that moment. Prayer helps. Meditation, if you choose to meditate, and exercise. Those are ways that we can reduce the stress response in the acute situation. Okay. So, like I said, stress management in the short term, using strategies to manage the situation, interpretation, and stress response. In the long term, managing everyday stress requires lifestyle modification, which can have profound effects on the amount of stress you experience. So you have to remember, if you fail to plan, you plan to fail. That's what I tell everybody. I tell my children, if you don't plan, you plan to fail. So if you fail to plan how you're going to manage your lifestyle, so that during times of stress, because you already have what we call an energy budget that is quite high, you find that you react to stress less than you would have if you had no lifestyle modifications in place. Okay, the sustaining lifestyle. And I love the way it says it's sustaining because it's something that we can have as a part of our life. So just imagine that we are an energy tank, and that energy tank is full of, you know, your energy, your interest, and your motivation. You have to, it's a full tank. You can't take what you don't have. You can't give what you don't have. So for you to make sure that that energy tank is adequately filled, we have to replenish our energy. So what ways do we use from that energy tank? Responsibility, stress, working towards a goal. It takes a lot from our energy tank. So how do we replenish it? is you're putting in as much as you want to get out. The aspects of your lifestyle, which will help improve your energy and give you more fuel to manage stress, are your diet, exercise, sleep, caffeine, drugs and alcohol, and taking time to have fun. All in all, balance is what is important. So when people are talking about lifestyle balance, this is what they need. Okay, so diet. I'm not going to talk much about diet. There's just too many things going around about diet. But the most important thing you need to remember is that when you go by fuel, there are different grades of fuel. Are you going to put? You have to figure out how you determine what your body is. Am I going to put in premium? Or am I going to put in the most exclusive of all fuels? Because what you put in is what you get. So it's all about nutritious meals. I like to tell my patients, that's why I have that background screen. It has to be a rainbow color. It has to be beautiful. It's about nutritious meals and eating to a routine, setting meal times. We're in a generation where sedentary has become the norm. And with sedentary comes mindless eating. And that's why it's better to eat by the clock, not by the stomach. And it's about eating mindfully, being present. Okay, you know, I made this meal. I'm not watching television. I'm not snacking while I'm vacuuming. You understand? And for my students, I always tell them, if you find it hard to to make meals, then make a prep. I'm an adult. I work full time. I've got kids. I've got a private practice. I prep on Sundays. Prep. And when you prep, you make extra. If I'm barbecuing steak, no, I'm barbecuing steak. We're having steak that whole week. I'm sorry. If I'm barbecuing chicken, it's chicken. Or from Sunday, but you need to prep your meal so you have extra. So you're not worrying in the moment and then you pick up things that are not really nourishing to you. So it says watch sugar intake and processed food. There's a reason why. It's junk in, junk out. The next thing with sugar is that it keeps spiking your blood sugar levels. Every time you dump in sugar, you get this glee. It feels you feel great. You get the dopamine rush, and then you have a crash. And then you struggle to be able to fulfill your responsibilities. So the last point I said is that our bodies are engine. Let's feed it. Super premium, whatever you need to feed it, feed it. Okay? Exercise says on average, physically fit individuals are less vulnerable to stress. Exercise improves stress management. How does it do that? It improves stress management by mood improvement, energy. It gives you more energy. And stress response, you're able to burn off the excess energy from your autosomal arousal. And you're able to get endorphins, which can lead you into your relaxation pathway. Okay. The mnemonic I use for my patients is 30 minutes on the clock, sweat on the brow, whatever you want to do. Just 30 minutes on the clock, sweat on the brow. The recommendations is up to 3 times a week. If you can do more than that, it's great. Whatever you invest in your health, you will get it back. Sleep. Who doesn't love sleep? I love sleep. So with sleep, sleep is important to be able to manage stress. You need to stick to a routine. Set standard sleep bedtime and keep to it. And it says the most important thing also is to remember is to avoid over-the-counter sleeping medications. They tend to disrupt your sleep quality. And you might get an extended period of sleep, but the quality of sleep is not beneficial. And quality of sleep has a lot to do whether you're getting enough REM sleep, which is the dream state, or non-REM sleep, because you can have as much non-REM sleep as you need, but if you do not have good REM sleep, you wake up feeling groggy, tired. So it says create a good sleep environment. No noise, no television, good room temperature, and a dark room. It helps to reverse your serotonin into your melatonin, which helps with sleep. Our body has that clockwork. That's why when we go through jet lag, there's a reversal of that clockwork and the body tries to get back into that clockwork. Avoid napping. I can't say it anymore because when you nap, then you find it very hard to sleep. So prepare for sleep. Avoid strenuous exercise, heavy meals, and bright light at least 1 hour before going to bed. And that includes your cell phones and screens. Okay, caffeine. Let's talk about caffeine. Just to let you know that caffeine remains the most addicted substance ever in the world. WHO has found that caffeine is the most addictive substance. But guess what? Caffeine has been normalized in cultures. Caffeine has been normalized in everyday life, that people are not really aware of how much people become dependent on caffeine. And I am a testimony that the withdrawal from caffeine is brutal. 3 years ago, I decided I was done with caffeine and I went through withdrawals for 3 months. But it's beneficial in the long run because I did see that I was getting what you call the 4 p.m. slump. You have caffeine, it drives you through the day. I am performing our work. 4 p.m. when I change my hat to being a mother and I'm taking my children around, guess what? I'm cranky, you understand? I'm tired, I'm fatigued. And I wasn't living in line with my values. So what is it about caffeine? Guess what? It stimulates the stress response, it gets you hyper aroused. It can also aggravate tension headache, chronic pain, and other physical problems. It is addictive. And tolerance. What is tolerance? You find that one espresso is good, then we start to take 2 espressos, then we take 3 espressos. And if you're like my husband who's in the OR, it's just espresso, espresso, espresso. So you can develop, and the withdrawals. I don't know, certain people might be able to identify with this. When I'm overloaded on caffeine, I have palpitations. I can feel my heart pounding, and when you're going through the withdrawals, by the time I'm getting that 4 p.m. slump, headaches, drowsiness, irritability, you have difficulty concentrating. Let's talk about caffeine as to how much caffeine can we get in certain foods? Because people try to say, but I don't drink a lot. You understand? I just drink 3 cups a day. Oh, I mix my caffeine and then I take tea, then I take cola, but it's not enough. So any of this, I'm talking about an 8-ounce drink. So for 150 milligrams of caffeine a day signifies that you are dependent on caffeine. So take, for example, a drip coffee, 8 ounces, it's 210. By the time you're taking 2.5 coffee of that, you're dependent. Instant, that's the Nescafe everybody puts in. It's 110 milligrams for an 8-ounce cup. Tea, how long you steep your tea will determine how much caffeine you get, apart from herbal tea, which is caffeine free. So you steep your tea for 5 minutes, that's 95 milligrams of coffee. You're British and you keep having tea, guess how much tea we are having? A cola drink, 45 milligrams for a can. A small chocolate bar, 25 milligrams. Hot chocolate, hello, 50 milligrams of coffee. By the time you have that mocha, you're going places with your caffeine intake. So drugs and alcohol. The beauty about drugs and recreational drugs and alcohol is that they temporarily make you feel better. They distract you from your emotions. I don't want to feel that feeling of sadness. I want to avoid the problem. I want to have a good time. I want to relax. Good. Everything in moderation. But the problem is just, don't look at my arrow, my typographical arrow. The problem is that it impairs your performance at home, work, and social settings. Dependence can occur, and it does occur. Your physical health can be impaired, and it worsens the stress response and causes dysregulation and distress intolerance. Okay. So the next thing that we talk about lifestyle management is having fun. Having fun, self-care. Always prioritize self-care and nourishing activities. Make sure you have activities which bring you joy. Listening to music, knitting, watching a movie, going for a walk, swimming, whatever you do that nourishes you helps with the sustaining lifestyle. Get a supportive circle, social circle to do things with. Coming into Canada, the first thing you're going to deal with is the lack of social circle. You need to have a social circle for yourself. It's paramount. Go hiking. We notice people around us spending so much time on extracurricular activities. There's a reason why. It helps with your sustaining lifestyle. So the most important thing is that even when you don't feel eager to do it, don't wait for it or the interest to return before you get moving. Enjoyment and the enthusiasm will come later. Endorphins will help you. Every time I get up, I go for a run or I go to the gym, I tell you I'm swearing and I'm just, why do I have to do this? What's the essence of this? At the end of it, you feel great. Get up, keep moving. Then the most important thing to be able to have fun is that you have to show yourself compassion. Focus on the positive. I'm deserving of this. I am worthy of this. I can do this. This helps me. I am my own person. And it's all about showing our self-compassion. Okay, so last slide. 7 things we need to remember is that we've talked about stress. There's a difference between stress and anxiety. When you get stressed for an extended period of time, you can become depressed. So the classical things to note is that when you have unwavering sadness, it's unremitting, a feeling of hopelessness, worthlessness, a feeling of lack of joy, no motivation, no drive, feeling alone, suicidal thoughts, that is not just stress. It is depression. It is time to seek help. When you have unwavering worry, it's encompassing. It is crippling. You're not able to leave your house. You're consistently thinking. You're negative. You have fear. You worry about dying. You worry about your loved ones dying. You find that you have this physical stress response every day, every time. You can't sleep. You're overwhelmed. That is anxiety. It is time to seek help. There are loads of supports there. Never get to the point where you tell yourself, no one can help me. You haven't tried it all. And then I'm going to say the most important thing about dealing with stress is remembering to be present. It's easy to just overlook this, but we go around life in an automatic way. We call it, it's almost like we're a robot. We do everything. There's certain times you get in your car, you drive to work, and the last thing, you can't even remember what you saw while driving. You can't remember how you got to work, what route you took. You were not present. It's about being present. This is what mindfulness is. Being there in the moment and enjoying it. What can I see? What can I hear? Oh my goodness, I've got this mug in front of me. What is it about it? That's being present. Enjoying all experiences that we have. Trying to make sure that we remember that the difficult ones builds resilience and experience. I always attribute it to a tree. All our negative experiences helps that tree to become more firm. It becomes the roots. The flimsy short-term joys are the leaves. They fall off, the branches fall off. But we having roots can help us stand firm when more storms come. And the beautiful ones help us to make memories. Thank you very much. Okay, so I think the first thing that we need to be quite aware of is that it's a fallacy saying there's high functioning anxiety. The reality is that there is so much anxiety that we can't tolerate until we break down. So when someone is going through every day, you understand, the signs you notice is that typical signs I notice when I work with people or I'm in a committee, that person that's consistently pedantic, micromanages, wants to have every situation sorted out to the T, people who, stay back at work, people who are, so those are the times where we need to tell them it's about what can we control right now? I know you want us to have this completely perfect. People who tend to have high functioning anxiety are people who are extremely high achievers. It's 100%. If it's not 100%, it's not great. So it's about trying to make them realize that there are many facets to life, and it's about succeeding in all the facets of life: work, home, friendships, social circles. And it's about putting skills, subtle skills in. So I work in a team, and there are 2 particular people that everybody gets all wavered about, understand, in a teasy about, because they're consistently micromanaging everyone. The first thing I try to do is that in that moment, they always go, are you psychoanalyzing me? I'm like, no, I'm like, okay, let's just take a breather. Let's break this down. You understand? How can we get this to be done at the detriment of all staying back till 8 p.m.? Can we delegate this? So like I think on the 3rd or 4th slide, it's about using subtle skills and rehashing it. And I go things like, you understand, I've got a lovely girl that I work with. I go, B, let's check the facts. Is this really what it is? Those are subtle skills that you can use to help high functioning people to realize that, I might need to take it easy. If you work with them, why don't we meet after work? You understand? Why don't you try and set things up? It's about putting more into their lives to be able for them to be able to remember that there's more to life than just, you understand, the next project, the next deadline. And those are ways. And they're not, being assertive is being frank, coming up and saying, I think you understand you're dealing with a lot of stress. How can we help you? if I was talking to you, the first thing I want to know is why do you want to go off the medication? The reality is that you need to discuss with your doctor why you're going off on that medication. And in a nutshell, what I'm just going to say is when you do go on any medication, from a psychiatric point of view, the overall aim is to achieve remission. So people go around with a fallacy that, oh, the medication helps me to cope better. No, you should achieve remission. If you're not achieving remission, then that person needs to be going back to their doctor to say, do I need an increase in dose? Because there are guidelines. I'll give you an example, depression. When you present with the first episode of a depression, depending on whether it is mild, moderate, or severe, if it's mild, the gold standard treatment is therapy. If it's moderate, it's therapy and medication. If it's severe, therapy, medication, and there might be some, you might need to have 2 or more medication. But the most important thing is that you treat it for 2 years, you wean the patient off after they have achieved remission. When you have a second episode of a depressive disorder, you do the same management. You treat for 2 years and then you wean off. When you have a third episode of depression, you treat for 5 years until they have achieved remission and then you wean off. Any subsequent episode of depression, you treat for life because it has to do with the receptor profile. And that's just way beyond the scope here. There's something about the receptor profile. If you keep having recurring depression, then you might need to be on the medication for life. That's why I said there's certain questions that need to be asked. With anxiety, medication is not just the treatment. There has to be therapy because when you medicate your symptoms, you still haven't learned the skills to be able to manage your triggers. And so there has to be that. So, and then as a psychiatrist, this is my pet peeve. So you're going to have to bear with me. A psychiatric illness is as valuable as a medical illness. It is agony. It is suffering. So whether you don't have a visible leg wound or you're not taking insulin, the overall WHO World Health burden, number 1 on the list is depression. It is here to stay. It is destroying people. It is killing people and people are suffering in silence. The stigma is what gets to me. So wanting to come off those medications, I will tell people if you have diabetes type 1, you will be on insulin for life. If you have hypertension, you will be on antihypertensive for life. So what's different from having something that's affecting your chemical imbalance? So when you say controlling your immediate environment, you have to make a choice. You understand what is in the environment that's stressing you? Is it the location? You understand what can I control in the moment? Well, I'm living in a house where I feel there's a lot of tension. Then I have to make more time for myself. Maybe I need to spend more time outside the house. I'm commuting long distances. Okay, maybe I need to go to bed a bit earlier. And during my commute, I try and get a nap in, or I try and finish up some work. That's where you can get a nap if you're not sleeping well. What is it in your environment? Maybe there's a lot of discord. Is it time to get out of that environment where there's discord? What is it in your environment? Well, I seem to be doing the whole housework and I'm going to work and I've got kids. Then it's time to sit down and prioritize. How much of this can I do? Do I need to cook every day? Do I need to do the dishes every day? Do I need to stock up that dishwasher? Do I need to wake up in the morning and put a load? It's all about modifying what is around your environment to suit you. The most important thing you need to say is, what can I control and what can I not control? In that process, worrying about what you cannot control is not valuable. It takes all your energy and puts you in a state of stress response. Breathing exercises is a normal breathing exercise. There's either the one breath. If you're in a hurry, you just take that one breath. I told you, like, I put shade on my mom. You hear them go, and I do it. That's supposed to be a one breath, but it's not being done rightly. The way to do a one breath is you're counting 100, 200, 300. You take a breath in through your nose, your mouth closed, you hold it in. It takes your diaphragm from being this to this, and it causes your parasympathetic nerve to cause relaxation. And then you breathe slowly out of your mouth. You can do a one breath repeated amount of times, or you can do your breathing skill exercise where I would get patients, they come to me in a panic attack and I'll just tell them, just sit, relax, close your eyes and just breathe. And then I walk them through this one breath multiple times and I get them to have a visual imagery. Think of the best place you could be. For me, it's always the beach, blue skies, blue waters. Think of the best place. And as you're thinking about that, I want you to take that breath in. You can literally see them from crying and they slowly start to calm down. There's what you call the progressive muscle relaxation that you can look up. But that is a beautiful one because you can do it up to about 10 minutes. You have to make sure, but it just helps a complete relaxation of the body. There's also the mountain meditation metaphor, which I love. It's about you just sitting down, doing your breathing exercise and visualizing a mountain. But remembering that we are the mountain, we're strong, we're firm. Then you imagine the weather that comes with the mountain. You've got spring, you've got fall. Those weathers are the different kinds of emotions and stress that we're going through. Remember that irrespective of whether the weather is harsh or it's beautiful, the mountain remains firm. You have gone through all kinds of emotions in your life. There is no emotional state that you're in that's unpleasant that can last more than 9 minutes. Whether it's a panic attack, it will subsequently go down. So remember yourself as a mountain. I am solid. I can do this. I have done this before and I will do this. And then you breathe through it. I think the most important thing that we can do to help people around us is how we phrase our need to help them. You have to remember that we're human beings who consistently feel targeted. We are consistently triggered. Whether it is in communication, whether it is in confrontation, whether it is in trying to release help, it's about making the person know that I am in your corner. And the only way that you can make a person know is that first thing, the first rule of communication is you do not approach a person with a you approach a person with an I. You understand? I'm here for you. I think you understand that you may be struggling, but I don't know, but I'm here for you. I want to support you. What is the stress that you're going through today that I can help you with? Or if they're triggered by that word, what is it that's a bit overwhelming that I can help you with? I've been known to tell some of my siblings or my nieces and nephews when they call, I'll be like, okay, just take a break, shut it down, go sleep. There's nothing that sleep does not help. But the problem is that we keep pushing ourselves to a point that we get overexhausted and we cannot sleep. So being able to be there for them is checking up on them. And I have gotten to a point now that when I think about you, I either message you or give you a call, checking up on people, trying to let them know that, can I take the kids for you for a day? When somebody feels that you're consistently there, you have to remember that delegation, letting go, looking for help are some of the faulty assumptions that we have. We feel, I don't want to look weak. I can do it myself. But I show up at your house, can I take the kids off you today and you have a relaxing bath? That person, the more you're there for the person is able to say, okay, you understand, this person doesn't see me as weak. This person doesn't want anything in return. This person wants to be there for me. Okay. So we have 3 different kinds of thoughts that manipulate the way we respond to life. It could be automatic thoughts. It could be core beliefs, or like I said, faulty assumption. Automatic thoughts are just, they come in, we don't know where they come from. But the most important thing about the thought is that you think it. So that's where checking the facts comes. Once I just feel my wheels going, boom, 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 boom. For me, the first sign for me to check my thoughts are when I start to think negative. It might be something like just looking at you, telling you, I'm like, what does she think she is? And my mind goes, what the hell is going on with you? Or I just find myself going, this is just a waste of time. You have to catch your thoughts. So overthinking thoughts, you have to catch it. Whoa. What was that about? Where did that come from? What's going on? And that's where you have to check the facts. So we can't go through life. I always tell my patients is that our thoughts and emotions are things that fuel us to move forward, but they're childish. So you will not let a child drive a car and you sit in the passenger seat. You let the child sit in the passenger seat. And that's what our thoughts should be like. And the reality about thoughts is that if you don't check it, it takes you over. Anxiety, stress, is like a Komodo dragon. The more you feed it, it becomes a magnificent dragon that takes you and rules your world. The only way that you can manage it, and it's an act of neuroplasticity, where the more we begin to practice things, the way you can manage it is about controlling your mind. If you read the Bible, it tells you you have to hold your thoughts captive. Whoa, what is going on? Stop. Why am I feeling this way? What happened? I might actually be able to, by the time I check the facts, and the more you practice it, it can literally take you 5 seconds. I am able to pinpoint why I'm feeling that way. And I'm able to say, okay, do I have a right to feel that way? What was it about that? You would literally find that it is my interpretation that was skewed. So when you're overthinking, sit with your thoughts. Don't run away from it. Sit with your emotions. Emotions are meant to be felt. They're signals. They're telling you something is wrong. Sit with it and say, why am I thinking this way? What happened today? How did I wake up? Did somebody say anything? What is about my day that I'm worrying about? Then check the facts. Do I really need to be worrying about this? What can I do instead of worrying? You understand? What can I control about this worry, about this situation that's causing me to worry?